Hey guys, welcome back to a new episode. If you are new here, my name is Miracle, population me, and this is a series I do talking about all things consulting. But if you watched my last week's video, I did tell you guys I was going to tell you more about the dark side of consulting and what it really means to work here, because it's not all glimmer and shimmer and glamour, right? So this is what this video is for. So if you like it, please drop me a like, come in the comments, and tell me what you want to know more about, because this one's a bit juicy. So stick around for it. But today we are talking about the ethics versus morality of working as a consultant, because if you don't already know about consulting, we have our own clients that are actual companies that you've heard of in real life, and we work with them to solve their problems. Whatever they need, they get, right? Especially if they're paying us a big money. But sometimes these problems and sometimes these companies can be against our morals and sometimes against our ethics as people, and not really what we want to help out with. Like, for example, if you were to help with like a gas company or an oil company, you might not feel like you want to help them increase revenue that year just because you personally might want more electric vehicles on the road, or you just hear about too many oil spills and you're like, you're not really gonna fix that. If I am helping you increase your revenue, you might want more help covering that up. So really, I have a little story time real quick. It's like a quick one, but my own little storyline was when I worked at my old internship, like literally 3 years ago now. Goodness gracious, time is flying. When I worked at my own internship 3 years ago, I was working for I wasn't working for any company, but we knew someone who was a full-timer there, and she was introducing herself and telling us about her company she was working at. And apparently her client was like a really, really popular cigarette company. Think of Marlboros, but it wasn't them. They're like a different one, but in the same category. And they sold cigarettes, e-cigs, Juuls, everything you want that's not like, you know, marijuana they were selling, right? And her job was to help them build more profit, be a market manager for them, to like help them get more people into their store, right? And if, as we all really know, cigarettes is not a great substance to use. And if you don't like the smell of cigarettes, like I don't like the smell of cigarettes at all. I hate when people smoke around me. It's like the worst scent ever. It's like, please at least do a nicotine patch, at least I won't smell it. But when we heard that she was at a cigarette company, we didn't think anything of it personally, because whatever, right? They're cigarettes, they're still legal. You can do whatever you want. I mean, at this point, people smoke weed every day. I don't really care. But some of my intern friends who were there, they had a higher moral compass, which is some of those people who they kind of act a little bit more in the more, they act a little more like they care a little bit more, but you don't actually ever see them do anything. Anyway, the point was he got a little bit more defensive about it when she wasn't there, and told us that he didn't like the fact that she was working for a cigarette company because he thought it was destroying her morals if she really cared. To be honest, we don't know if she cared about working at a cigarette company. Maybe she smoked herself and thought nothing of it. Maybe she just thought it's a bag, who cares? But it got me thinking 3 years later of companies that really do just push your boundaries sometimes, because you can hear about all the companies out there like Nestle, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, BP, Shell, and think to yourself, like, I wouldn't mind working for these companies if they give me a job. I wouldn't mind helping them with their issues. But then you see them on the news one day and they're like an oil spill, or they're selling like baby formula to a country that has no water, and then they're overcharging them. Like, it's a lot of things you hear about, and then you're like, ooh, let me not touch them. Let me like move to a different like off-brand one or different brand company as a consumer, right? Because as consumers, we have like so many options. When you're working with a client and maybe don't know about these things because maybe they haven't happened yet, or maybe they haven't even like hit the news yet, or maybe you heard about it and you have no choice but to work with them because you have the choice to choose a client. But when you're starting off like me or your associate, you are just put into whatever and you're told to work for them, right? So you really hope you don't get like some of the worst clients ever. I mean, working for Facebook is like, it is what it is if you're working for a Facebook company, because yeah. But if you're working between them and like a different company, it might be a lot worse, like Telegram. You know about Telegram? Do your research about that one. But I'd rather work with Facebook than work with Telegram, even though Facebook probably did worse things than Telegram. But at the same time, it's like, I don't have a choice, right? As a consultant, I'm told to work with this client, so I have to work with this client. So in this video, I'm gonna give you guys a little case study of when a consulting company, a really popular consulting company that's still around to this day, worked with a very popular at the time big pharma company, and it went totally off the rails. The fault was between everyone, between the consulting company to the big pharma company, and the victims were the clients and the customers and the patients and the doctors and everyone who was buying from these people, because it's pretty bad. It happened like literally in 1995, but it was just resolved last year. So that's how long it took, and it's like still ongoing because medical issues take forever. Like they're never truly like resolved in terms of patients and the people who are victims, but in terms of like legal cases, they're resolved until everything's paid for, of course. But let's get into this case study, because honestly, I said I wasn't gonna do one, but then I was like, I saw it and I was like, you know what, I probably should talk about it because it's a very good example of when people don't really have that choice to choose of what clients they want. But at the same time, there are those who don't care, because at the end of the day, if they can get a bag, they will get a bag. They will get a bag. They do not care. Let's get into it. This is the story of McKinsey, the consulting company, and the opioid crisis of 1995. So hope you enjoy. So essentially, in 1995, the opioid crisis was rampant, a lot more rampant than you know now. Yes, you see it on the streets today, but it was a lot more on the news back then. The war on drugs was really starting off because there was the heroines, the fentanyl, but really there was the Oxycontin, which at the time was the highest numbered drug for prescription base that doctors can give you if you had anywhere from severe to moderate pain. And around this time, a company called Purdue Pharma, which was a privately owned pharmaceutical based in Delaware, were the biggest supplier of, because they manufactured it, they distributed it, and they also marketed it to hospitals and labs so that they can prescribe it to their patients and give it to them on a need basis, right? And during this time, the FDA had changed their laws from having the opioid of Oxycontin, which is what they were selling specifically, go from use it for a few days if you have pain, to use it for a few months to a few years without a doctor present if you have pain, right? So Purdue Pharma knew this, but they were still selling it at a high rate that was even causing the FDA to charge them from the year 1995 to the year 2002, because they were pushing it and also falsely marketing it as a really good painkiller without the side effects being known as overdosing, being addicted to it, and basically death. You know those ad companies that show you like weird medicine and most people don't need, and one side effects is death? It's like that, but the word death was really silent and you never heard about it. So they were charged around this time in 2000, $195 million to pay out to victims and people's families, because there's been several people who were caught in the opioid crisis from drugs that came from their manufacturing warehouse because of their false marketing, and they had to pay it out. You guys with me? Okay, let's go. In 2003, McKinsey consulting firm came onto the scene to help Purdue out with their major issue. And if you haven't already thought what their major issue was, it was to sell more Oxycontin. And if you must know why it is such a bad drug compared to like the other painkillers out there that are more on the streets and not at all regulated because they're not in hospitals, Oxycontin has oxycodone, which is a substance 2 highly addictive drug that's very similar to morphine, though it is stronger, because while morphine can be out by your doctor, Oxycontin is more of a pill, and if you take more than one, because they are prescribed for at-home use at the time, you can be overly addicted to it, abuse it, and eventually die from it. So you don't really even see it in hospitals to this day, because it is not the type of drug you want to use. Morphine is the obvious choice because they can give you sections of it and be fine. Even fentanyl, which is used in highly invasive surgeries, are like last-based scenarios in most hospitals. Those things are out the gate, not something you will ever be taking home with you for pain relief. But Oxycontin at the time was. So there was no way to regulate if people were taking these medications correctly without the use of a doctor present, because it's the 90s, baby. It's like, what is there going to be there for? So around this time, McKinsey's main job was to help with Purdue Pharma, was to help them market the drug, sell the drug to the prescribers to give to the patients, and help them get around the FDA so you get it approved to actually get it out of the way. So the first step really was to really get the approval for FDA. So from 2003 to 2014, they worked with an FDA expert that they had already within their firm, because since it's a consulting company, they have multiple clients they're working with, and unfortunately for everyone else involved, one of the clients they worked with was the FDA. So they already have people who were expert in FDA speak on the case with them to help them figure out the lingo on their paperwork and document with Purdue Pharma to help them push out Oxycontin, but give it to the FDA so that they wouldn't see it as false marketing on their part, but would see it as a drug that can help patients and market it still as the best pain reliever on the market. But in order to actually get that paperwork approved, they have to change the drug, because the drug itself, while it was on the market already in Purdue, it was also a generic drug that any company could have made and given it to the doctor. So they had to reformulate it and then remarket it as better for you, less addicting, and you cannot die from an overdose. None of it was true. So after they reformulated the drug, they sent it off to the FDA to actually have them test it, but they also send their documents to show they had to prove that the drug was less likely to cause you to be more receptive to it, and there's less risk of you being addicted to it, because they made sure that whatever was giving you those vibes to take more of it was less in the drug. And somehow the FDA didn't catch on that it was fake and it was altered and it was falsified information, and they approved the drug. So in 2014, they approved a new formulated drug that Purdue Pharma has created, and that gave them the heads up to go make more and give it out to the doctors and make more profit. But they didn't know that at the time. They were still trying to fight the opioid crisis that had fentanyl, heroin, and even Oxycontin in the streets in many stores and many manufacturing places. They weren't focusing the most on pharma. They're not even that big, but they really act like big pharma in a situation. Unfortunately for Purdue and McKinsey at the time, their plan wasn't doing very well. So at the time, their sales still did not increase to the numbers they wanted, because a lot of people were already told that Oxycontin in its entirety was a bad drug. So no doctor was buying it, no prescriber was taking it, no lab wanted to even touch the substance. So they had to go back to McKinsey, who worked with them anyway, to make them have a better marketing strategy so they can actually push this drug to more people and let them know this is better for you, even if you don't see it yet. So McKinsey went through 3 strategies of pushing their marketing. 2 of them failed, because of course they did, and the third one succeeded, and that was the one when they brute force cold call a lot of prescribers who had patients who were known to have chronic illness, have pain, whether they had cancer pain, nursing home, hospice, all the works. So essentially, McKinsey just took data they were not supposed to see, because they also do healthcare industry projects as well. So they had access to those medical records, and they were able to see what patients were the most at risk for this drug to take. And they called up prescribers who had the most patients with those risks, and they called them up saying, we have the drug for you, and to come get it. So they were causing a lot more crimes than just the crime of lying. They were also looking into people's medical records. They call people up and say, here's a drug that definitely won't get you sick, of course. And then they sent it to them in buttloads, which caused a huge ripple effect in the hospital. By 2015, 2017, prescribers were now getting 12 times more likely calls to get the medicine, which they actually got and actually bought from these companies, because they finally realized, like, hey, maybe this is a better version of the original Oxycontin. So they called it Oxycontin 2.0. They did not. I called it that, because in their minds, that is what it was. They saw it as the less addicting format. There were patients that say they never got as addicting, because when one pill, you're not addicted to it, but with the constant use of it, you are building a more tolerance to it, so you're taking more than one pill over time. But no one knew that yet, because you're given just the bottle and you're told to go home with it, or you're staying in the hospital and no one's watching you take it. So at the end of the day, it seems like the best, because the one pill doesn't get you addicted, because you're not taking just one pill to get addicted to, right? And around 2013, Purdue Pharma made over $2.5 billion from their current sales of making millions a few years ago when they first got it approved by the FDA. So you can say that McKinsey's marketing was really good. Like, they made a lot of money in terms of 4 years, from 2013 to 2017, like a lot of money. But unfortunately, with the increase of money was the increase of lawsuits, And unfortunately for that, increases the people who OD'd on the drug, because now that you had 12 times more people getting the drug from from Purdue, because they were calling these pharmaceuticals to pick it up, now you had all these people claiming their family members were addicted to the drug and they couldn't get off of it, or there's people even claiming OD from family members who no longer were around because they all got it from the same source. Because once again, when you reformulate a drug and you sell it on the market, you are the only one who have it. So now Purdue is getting hit with left and right lawsuits, getting criminal cases on criminal cases. And you know how I said at the beginning, in 1995, they already had to pay out $250 million to like victims because they already were pushing for marketing that wasn't even correct with Oxycontin. The same thing was happening again, only this time McKinsey's name was attached to it because they were legit helping them every step of the way except making the drug. Making the drug was the only thing they were innocent of doing. So in 2017, the FDA started coming down more heavily on Purdue because they realized the documents they sent them was not correct in terms of the drugs and the lawsuits that they were getting, because now they had proof that what the drugs that people were having were addicting. Like, people were legit still taking them even when the pain wasn't as bad, or even when they had to go back to the doctor and get more drugs before a prescription was officially supposed to be over. So around this time, McKinsey and Purdue got hit with criminal and civil lawsuits, but somehow McKinsey didn't get the memo that you don't delete stuff when you're hit with a lawsuit. So around this time in 2018, 2019, McKinsey did a mass deletion of all their documents that they had between Purdue and them, even firing top VPs, directors, and partners who all knew the most information about the merger and what they were doing, so they could have less eyes on the paper trail and delete it. And even on Purdue's side, they fired their CEO, got a partner, fired several partners above them, so that less people knew about their risk and no one was able to basically whistleblow on them because they've been doing this for a very long time. But unfortunately for them, this did not even work out because the FDA has obtained many documents from people who already left, plus those who were still in the company, of PowerPoint slide decks and documents with not the forgeries, but the people who I said was the FDA expert because they worked in McKinsey. They had their signatures of documents they helped out on because they were telling them lingo that McKinsey would never have known otherwise, because they weren't supposed to have been originally approved because the drug is addicting. Still is. Not one part of Oxycontin is a good drug. But on the side of the paper trail, they had slide decks literally demonstrating the marketing strategy they were going to give out to different prescribers so they can understand the benefits only of the drug. So they even took away the risk that people even saw. And they had all this in a nice little document of 71 pages where I got most of this information for. Link down below if you want to read it. It's a really good read. But all this came to a head in 2024 when Purdue and McKinsey were charged officially from criminal and civil lawsuits, where McKinsey had to pay $950 million in settlement claims and were no longer allowed to work within the federal sector / life science sector. And they couldn't work anywhere within the big pharma industry anymore, which, in my opinion, they got a slap on the wrist, because at the end of the day, they're still out there, still helping people, and able to like go out and make more clients. Even to this day, they have 4 more years before they go right back into helping another big pharma with the newest drug. But for Purdue Pharma, they got a death sentence. They literally were forced to pay billions of dollars to the clients and to the victims who unfortunately passed away from this disease, and also had to go bankrupt because they no longer were able to sustain the company up from money again. So even their website, which is actually still up, is no longer active. It does say reconstructing because this happened literally a year ago, I think in like February. So this is all very new, but all happened like decades ago. And obviously, everyone's at fault except for the doctors, the hospitals, and the patients, because no one knew the truth, and the only ones who knew was McKinsey and Purdue Pharma, which no longer exists. But if you look it up, it's all over the internet because it was a really big case that luckily came to a head and they got it closed. But obviously, Oxycontin is still out there. The opioid crisis is still rampant, and McKinsey is still standing firm, and it's one of the big companies to work for. So as you can tell, maybe you can say like, oh, McKinsey did morals because they knew that Purdue was even having these issues prior to them coming on, and it came on anyway because they knew how much money there was to make, or they were unaware and they needed to research. But realistically, if you're a consultant and you didn't know that a company you're working for was losing millions of dollars prior to you being there, you're not a very good consultant, and I don't know how you're getting paid. But that is really all that case study shows. It does showcase the worst sides of consulting, because yes, they are still around in some regards. They're still known as one of the big four companies, while the other company had to get shut down because you're paying billions of dollars. You're not that big. Like, you're not Pfizer, you're not these other companies, So that just goes to show you that if you risk your morals just to have a bag, even though I can have a whole series of people who literally risk their lives for a bag and they're still fine and making more money than I ever will. But if you do, it will come to a head and you will be forced to reckon with your own mistakes and even pay back the people whose lives will forever be changed, whether they're a victim because they took the drug, or they knew someone who did, or they're just surrounded by the horrors of it, right? So really, this is like first episode of a series that I'm going to do about the dark side of consulting, because it's always glim and glamour until something really bad happens. So I hope you liked the case study. I did say I wasn't going to talk about a company before, but I saw the case online and it was public knowledge because it literally just closed a year ago. So no one can come for me and say, oh my God, you're going to get fired, because it's online, public knowledge. Anyone can talk about it. But disclaimer, my own opinions. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will see you guys later this week while I talk about, hopefully, the next case study, and let you guys know more about other companies that have done similar things, because just because they're not part of the company doesn't mean they're not still at fault for things they are helping out with. But I will see you guys next time in my next video. Remember to like, share, subscribe so you don't miss a new update from me. All right. Bye, guys. See you later.